Shalom and welcome to my weekly video message. Do you know why you shouldn't tell secrets when clocks are around? Because time will tell. In this week's Torah portion, we read about the first 7 plagues that God brought upon Egypt. When it came time to bringing the 7th plague, the plague of hail, God wanted Moses not only to warn Pharaoh that he will bring the plague, but God tells Moses to also be specific about the time, that it will be ke'et machar, at this very time tomorrow. So in order to be specific about the time, Rashi in his commentary tells us that Moses made a scratch on the wall to demonstrate that tomorrow, when the sun reaches this very spot, the hail will come down. So okay, God wants you to be specific about the time. But why a scratch on the wall to prove your point? But before we answer this question, there's another more basic question that I think needs to be addressed. And that is, why did God want Moses to give the exact time for when the plague of hail would take place? Something we don't find that was a prerequisite for any of the earlier plagues. The answer is simple. You see, each of the plagues had a unique purpose. The purpose of the hail was to give the Egyptians the ability to express their fear of God by fleeing to their homes together with their servants and livestock before the hail began. Those who did would be saved. So in order to be sensitive to the needs of those Egyptians, Moses needed to give them the exact time. But why the scratch on the wall of the palace? Who would even see it? So in addition to giving an exact time for the Egyptian population, Moses wanted to be even more specific and make a sign of the exact time of the plague to demonstrate to Pharaoh that the plague came directly from the hand of God. In fact, we see Moses succeeded in his goal. For after the plague of hail, for the very first time, Pharaoh conceded and proclaimed, God is right and I am wrong, that God is in control. But how would Moses make sure that Pharaoh recognized that the hail came at the exact moment God had forewarned, so that it had its desired effect? He needed to use a clock, but he also knew that he couldn't use the typical Egyptian water clock or clepsydra, where time is measured by the regulated flow of liquid into a vessel, because then the Egyptian magicians would possibly mess around with the clocks to try to prove that Moses didn't have any greater abilities than they had. And then Moses wouldn't achieve his goal. Therefore, Moses felt he needed to do something a little more original, and even to use a little chutzpah, despite the possible negative feedback that he might receive. And so he made a scratch on the wall of Pharaoh's palace, one that had his unique signature on it, so that it couldn't be duplicated, scraped off, or filled up by Pharaoh's magicians. So here's a beautiful takeaway. We often set out with a goal to accomplish something good, or to make a change in our lives for the betterment of our spiritual or emotional well-being. But we hesitate. We hesitate out of concern for the scratch our actions may make on the walls of the world. And of course we are concerned about the opinion of others and social pressures. What will my neighbors, my family, and friends think of me for hanging a different clock? What will my colleagues at work think of me for acting slightly different than them, and for finding meaning in things they might not? At times like these, we must remember that each of us has a spark of Moses deep within us, which can give us the strength to accomplish what we need to without being affected by those around us. In fact, when we are consistent and strong in our spiritual convictions, not only will others around us not bother us, but on the contrary, they will support us. And like the Egyptians, they too may very well be inspired by our commitment to enhance their lives with meaning and purpose. Shabbat Shalom.